So you might have heard the buzz around this new ruling, with many speculating that it's going to totally change the real estate market forever, man. Now, contrary to the juicy media headlines, which we know they can be oh so juicy, after being a realtor for 12 years and now not really being a realtor anymore, I'm just a full-time real estate investor, I have an interesting perspective on this matter. And it's that the National Association of Realtors ruling might not be the game changer that has been hyped up to be. Now, I know everyone really wants to stick it to their realtors because they're the ones increasing housing prices. Like, what are you talking about, man? But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a little bit tougher for a lot of realtors to start justifying their commissions. But in this video, I'm going to explain how it's not really going to change anything going forward and how you can benefit from this as a buyer or as an investor. So with that being said, let's get into it. So the first thing with this ruling is that 5 and 6% commissions will no longer be the standard in the contracts. Well, it's good marketing. It sounds good on a headline, but here's the thing, dude. That was never industry standard. It was never in the listing agreement preset contract that if you are a seller, you must pay 5 to 6%. That's always been negotiable, but it's been industry standard in a sense of sentiment. Now, the listing agent, when they get the appointment and they get the listing and they're just about to sign the paperwork, they usually say, you know, we should offer 5 to 6% commission because it really brings in the other buyer, the buying agent, and that's really what's going to get the buyer to the front door. And the seller goes, okay, yeah, you're right. Now, the reality is if you don't offer that much money, for example, if a listing agent, which they could have always done, now the reality is if you don't offer that much money, so for example, a seller could always before this ruling said, I don't want to pay the buyer broker 2%, 3%. I only want to pay them 1%. I only want to pay them $500. Well, that would be on the listing on the back end. The buyer realtor would see that and go, oh guys, this guy's only paying me 1%. We have a contract between you and me as the buyer for 2%, which means if I really want to be a dick, you got to cough up the other 1% to bring me to 2%. How do you feel about that? And then the buyer goes, let's skip that house and go to the other house that's offering you 2%, so I get free services. That's what's going to happen going forward. Now, the second thing, and I'll touch on that in a sec at the end of the video. Now, the second thing is that sellers always pay the buyer fee. Now, this new ruling is saying sellers won't automatically have to pay the buyer agent. The buyers have to figure that out themselves. That's always been the case. It's always been that way. Now, the reason the seller pays for all the realtors, their listing agent and the buyer broker, is because normally they have a lot of equity in their property. You know, a seller typically moves every 5 years, every 7 years, every 10 years. The average is 5 years. But in those 5 years, sellers usually have a decent amount of equity. They paid down their mortgage quite a bit. It appreciated, you know, usually a lot in those 5, 7, 10 years. So while the total agent fees will be $20,000, for example, on the average house for both realtors, after the seller just made $150,000, $200,000 over the past 5 years, they're just like, yeah, whatever. It's no really skin off their back. The money's just chilling there. It's already there. On closing, it just gets all mixed and washed up with the lawyers and the title company, and the disbursements goes out, and then the seller gets, you know, $114,837 net. And they're like, sweet. That's how it works. And that's why the sellers usually pay, whereas the buyer has to put down the down payment, you know, 20% cash, you know, home inspections, moving costs, like all the costs that get put on, furnishing the house, you know, when buying a property. And now you want them to pay $10,000, $12,000 cash on top of all of that to pay their realtor. That's why typically the sellers have always paid the fees because, you know, it's hard on the buyer. We got to get the buyer and make it a little easier. They're putting up a lot of money. Let's just pay it all out from our equity that we've got from all these past 5 years of holding the property. That's why it's been not industry standard, but industry sentiment that the seller pays for everything because the money's there. So what's going to happen going forward once this ruling gets passed, which it looks like it's going to get passed for July, this summer? It'll go into effect across America, and it'll probably ripple out to other countries like Canada and Europe. So what's going to happen coming up next? Number one, it's probably in my mind, as being an industry professional and being a realtor for so long and seeing how buyers and sellers interact, it's pretty much gonna be the exact same. Nothing's gonna change, nothing. While sellers will have more power and oomph, I guess, to say, I'm not paying the buyer's broker fee. Now that it's a new ruling, I don't have to. Listing agents will go, okay, you don't have to pay the buyer's broker, but if you don't, just realize a lot of buyers are going to skip your house and go to John's house next door and buy his house because he's offering to pay the way it's always been. So act tough all you want. Buyers are just going to skip your house. So realtors will be highly influencing their sellers. Trust me, seller, you want to offer 2% commission to pay for the buyer broker. Trust me, or else all the buyers are just going to skip your house. Nobody's going to buy your house. Or greatly less people will want to buy your house. Number 2, what's going to happen is that innovation will continue to get better. Zillow will get better. Zillow is getting already easy. Any buyer can pretty much buy a house, especially if you're a skilled investor or skilled home buyer. You can pretty much buy your house on your own. You don't need a realtor. It's all there. All the information is there, especially in America. You can do your own comparables, seeing past sales. A lot of countries like Canada, we cannot do that. Only realtors in Canada get access to all of that back-end data for seeing comps, what's sold for what price. In America, in the freedom country where everything is public knowledge, anybody can do comparables anywhere for free on Zillow. So websites like that will continue to get better and better. AI, well, I'm sure is going to get way better at helping inexperienced buyers or even investors buy properties on their own, help them write offers and what clauses to use where. More and more innovation will happen, not directly from this. Maybe it'll expedite it a little bit more, but that innovation was going to happen regardless. So all in all, from being a realtor for 12 years and now not really being a realtor, but obviously being a heavy real estate investor, I personally think all of this is just media hoopla. It ain't going to do nothing. It's hyping up the basement boys who want to see the realtors go down because they're causing the real estate crisis and all that. But guys, it ain't gonna do shit. You're gonna see a bunch of YouTube videos on here talking about how the real estate market is over. It's gonna crash finally. It's all a bunch of bullshit. Anyway, that's my thoughts. What do you think's gonna happen? Let me know in the comments below. I will see you in the next video.